everybody. Let's take a look at this graph here, and we're going to find the amplitude, the period, and the midline. Now, you can sort of find these three things in any order that you'd like, but it's best to use the information that they give you and then see what the appropriate order is from there. So if I take a look at this, they're giving me a maximum point and a minimum point. Now, which of those three things, the amplitude, the period, or the midline, which of those three things uses the max and the min? You're correct, the amplitude uses the max and the min. Because if you can recall from the last video, the amplitude is 1/2 of the total vertical distance. Now, that's also the same as 1/2 of the max minus the min. Okay, because what we're doing when we're looking for the amplitude is we're looking for this whole vertical distance from the tippity top all the way to the bottom, and we're going to end up cutting that in half. Okay, so the maximum value in this case is 3.2. Okay, it's the y value of that max right there, and the min value is -1.6. So I'm going to take 3.2 and I'm going to subtract -1.6. Okay, and you're right, that is going to give me a positive number. That's going to give me positive 4.8. Okay, so that's really telling you that from this maximum here all the way down to this minimum here, that's a distance of 4.8 units. Okay, so the amplitude is going to be half of that. So the amplitude is going to be 2.4 units. Okay, now once I've got the amplitude, that's actually going to help me find the midline. Because remember that the midline is going to cut this graph in half, which means you'll be able to see the amplitude from the midline up and from the midline down. Okay, so if I take a look at this maximum point, if I take a look at the point 1.5, 3.2, that's the maximum. If I go down from the maximum 2.4 units, I'm going to find the midline. Okay, so let's take a look. Let's see. So 3.2 minus 2.4. So that means that the midline is the horizontal line y equals 0.8. I'm going to draw that right here. Okay, so again, I'm going to see the amplitude from the midline. I'm going to see that from here to here is 2.4, and that from here down is also 2.4. So that's what the midline does. It cuts that graph in half, and I can see the amplitude to and from. Okay, so now let's see if we can find the period. So the first thing you need to figure out before you find the period is where one cycle is. So if I start at the given point that they gave me, and I go from the given point and I follow down, I'm going to come down a little bit until I get to that min that they gave me. Now that's not really one cycle yet, because then I've got to come back up. And if you notice, once I hit that maximum there, the curve's going to come back down again and continue to repeat. In your mind, you should say that this looks like cosine. Okay, and you'd be correct in saying that because you can kind of see the little shape, right? Remember that cosine kind of looks like a little bell, and you can sort of see that there. So the question is, what's the distance of that cycle? What is the period? How am I going to figure out the distance from here all the way to here? Okay? Now, I think that it's good for you to notice that if you go from the max to the min, that's actually half of that cycle. Okay, there is half of a cycle between those two given points. What is the distance from 1.5 to 4.7? How would I get from 1.5 to 4.7? I would have to go 3.2 units. You are correct, 3.2 units. So that means that half of the period's 3.2. So in order to get the whole thing, I'm just going to double that. Okay? So that means that the period is 6.4 units. 6.4 units is the period. So now that's a cool thing because you can look at a cycle in any situation. So I've just chosen that little green bell that I drew. But I could have also looked at a cycle maybe from here and then up and then back down again. That could be considered a cycle as well. Now, the distance from this point all the way over here to this point is also going to be 6.4. Okay, you can find the period in any place on this curve. So can you guys tell me what you think the coordinates of that point is going to be? You're definitely correct in thinking that the y value is negative 1.6 because it has to align with this other minimum point over here. What about that x value? You're correct. It's negative 1.7. How did we get that? Well, this x value here is 4.7, and if I just subtract that 6.4 units, I'm going to land all the way over here at negative 1.7. Okay, good job, guys. So here are the three things we found. We found that the amplitude was 2.4 units here. We found that the midline was the horizontal line of y equals 0.8, and we found that the period was 6.4 units. Great job. Let's take a look at another example. So here, we've got this other periodic function. We've got kind of a different shape here, and we've got different points given to us, okay? So, as I said in the beginning of this video, depending on the points that they give you, we're going to find the appropriate order in which to figure out the things that we need. Now, I've been given what looks like points right in the center of this curve. Now, it also looks to me like this maximum here is at negative 8, and this minimum here is at negative 12. So if these y values at these points given are negative 10, you should agree with me that the midline, everybody, is y equals negative 10. There's our midline. Now, if you can clearly see the max and the min, and you know the midline, you say to yourself, oh, well, look, isn't that 2 units here? And isn't this 2 units here? You're absolutely correct. So that means that the amplitude in this case is 2 units. How simple was that? We found that pretty quickly. Okay, so let's see if we can find the period. Now remember that you always want to try to use the points that were given to you. So if I kind of put a little dot right here and I sort of follow along to the right, there I've hit my other dot. I have to keep going up though, and then I'm going to come back down. And that's kind of one period, because as you can see that once you hit this point right here, then the graph's going to continue on in the same manner. So that kind of looks like a shifted sine curve. Okay, remember that sine kind of looks like a wave. So that looks like a shifted sine curve. Maybe it's a little upside down, but that's definitely what it looks like. So we should be able to figure out the period from here. If I find the distance between the 2 points that they gave me, if I can find the distance from negative 1.7 to 5.1, you should agree with me that that again is going to be half of that cycle, okay? So let's see. The distance from negative 1.7 to 5.1, how much is that? You're correct, that's 6.8 units. So then if I just go 6.8 units again, that's going to be my entire period. So my period in the case, everybody here, is 13.6 units.